Here's a question you maybe never get a chance to think about. What's in your old backlog? That's this week on the Badass Agile podcast. Greetings, team. Welcome to the Badass Agile podcast. I'm your host, Chris Williams. Hello, friends and fans. Great to see you. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope we get a chance to add a ton of value with this one because the topic this week is what's in your old backlog. I think this one's a real distinguisher because you don't hear this one a lot. Now, before we dive in, let's take a moment to remember why we're here. To create an elite tribe of leaders who truly serve their clients and communities by doing what matters and what works, relentlessly chasing value and excellence like a badass. There's so many resources out there about what you need to do to be agile, but we're focused on who you need to become in order to lead teams. So let's hammer down those fundamentals to create a truly unique and powerful force in this industry. Remember, if this helps you, tell your friends. Now here's what. A backlog should be a place where you capture your inspiration, your best ideas, and your best attempts to add value to the lives of your customers, your clients, or your companies, or whoever you feel you serve. If a backlog ends up being a collection of safe, perfect ideas, where only things that have been well-groomed and well-analyzed end up, you're missing the point of agility. Agility needs to be a place that fosters creativity and innovation. And the only way to do that is to allow the backlog to be messy and dirty for a while. We may think that we've got the next great idea for the next great feature that every user will love, so we put it into the pile. But as we validate, and how do we validate? We're supposed to be validating by building and showing and getting feedback. That's when we figure out if it was a good idea or a bad idea. And because we keep our iterations short, we minimize the amount of time we can go in the wrong direction without changing course. So the backlog should be a safe place to put in even bad ideas, ill-informed ideas. If upon further inspection and experimentation, they're just not going to work, they fall to the bottom of the backlog and eventually drop off forever. All of us have had backlogs with thousands of items in them. I know you've done it. This is how we learn to write good stories instead of bad stories. This is how we learn to split stories instead of keeping them too big. This is how we learn to make sure that every story represents an increment of customer value by putting it in there, having it be wrong, and never cleaning it up. Now, this is the important part. Don't clean it up, or if you clean it up, move it to another place where you can always go back to it. Here's why. Bad ideas don't belong in the backlog. Things you're never going to do don't belong in the backlog. So yeah, if you have a backlog with thousands of items in it, maybe it's a good idea to flush it every once in a while. But that's different than saying you will delete them forever. Keep your bad ideas, because your bad ideas may have been the most creative work you've done all year. And when you go back to them, all of a sudden, their value becomes obvious and relevant again, even if the way that you entered it in the first place is no longer relevant. Some variant, some transformation, some adaptation. Stapling together two of your bad ideas to make one great idea happens all the time. Now, when does something not belong in a backlog? If we're following the quote-unquote rules, it should be the items that are never going to get built because they don't add enough value. Fair enough. But remember, value changes over time. And remember something else. One of the reasons why we won't execute this is not because it's valueless, but because it's not valuable enough to warrant the investment. An investment is always limited. Sometimes there comes a point where you can expand the investment, where you can leverage that investment. So it's not that the idea was bad if it's trapped at the bottom of your backlog. It's not no. It's just no for right now. Here's another case in point. If you do retrospectives faithfully, and as I recommend, do them more than once every 2 weeks. You should be doing them personally every day, if not more frequently. You should be inspecting and adapting after each interaction, even if it's just for 30 seconds. The point being, how often have you, as part of a team, seen people put their desired improvements up on a poster board, and because a certain item didn't get upvoted, it just falls off, we roll up the paper, and we throw it in the garbage. Keep all of your observations. This too is creativity. This too is brainstorming. This too represents your creative endeavor to serve your customers and deliver maximum value. So none of it is worthless. But this is a particularly insidious problem because we don't see improvement work as valuable delivery work. It's even easier to throw these things in the garbage and write them off. But you lose the wisdom gained by spending time thinking about your performance, analyzing your game, and as a team, putting it up on a board, saying maybe we could make this better. Here's something powerful that you should notice. Even though something doesn't get upvoted, if it keeps getting brought up week after week, there's an excellent chance that this is actually more important than you think. It's on the minds and in the psyches of everyone in the room, everyone who is contributing and trying to make the team better. But if you've rolled them up and thrown them in the garbage, that's all landfill now. And you don't have access to your own brilliance. How long would it take you to take a snapshot of everything that the team records, file it away, and then once in a while do what I call grooming? You guys know what this means because you do it in backlogs all the time. But it's a very rare thing that we spend time grooming our creative output and ideation. No doubt your team has a backlog grooming practice for product features. And part of a healthy practice should be cleaning the backlog of things that don't need to be there because they're distracting, and they create all kinds of confusion and fear and overwhelm. So yeah, clean them out. But why not move them to a place where every once in a while you can go back, review, and reflect? You never know what value you might find there, and it may be time to reinstate an old idea. Sometimes you may have done a whole bunch of analysis work. You've developed the story to the point where it was definition of ready. But because you moved it out of the backlog, you completely forget about it. And then if the feature request comes up again in the future, you end up doing all of that work over. Well, isn't this a great way to minimize waste? Never throwing anything away doesn't make you a pack rat. It doesn't make you a hoarder. It means you're a faithful steward of your best ideas, realizing that they may not add value now, but they might in the future. And for me, the simple creative practice of going back through and grooming rejected ideas creates a certain energy, familiarity. It sharpens my point of view, and to be honest with you, it's how most of these podcast episodes get in front of you guys. I never throw anything away. What happens sometimes, I come up with an idea that I'm really stoked about, that I'm super sure will create tons of value for you, and then when I go to look at it the next day or develop it as an episode, it's gone. I don't feel it. Something happened. It went away. But then a couple of months later, maybe it's a change in current events, maybe the attitudes in the industry are shifting, or maybe something's just happened. I go back and look at that idea, and it's suddenly recharged with a new level of energy and excitement. And I can't wait to run into the studio and make it into something real for you. We should treat our discarded backlogs the same way. You don't have to spend a ton of time in there, but every once in a while, just give it a scan and see what grabs you. Trust me, the right things will jump out. The meaningful stuff will stick. So let's try incorporating this into your practice this week. Don't be afraid to reach out and let me know how it works for you. You can find me as always at badassagile.com or reach out on Twitter at badass_agile. I look forward to seeing you next time, and until then, stay badass.